The most important thing about creative effectiveness is because it proves work that's both creatively and commercially compelling, and the industry needs more examples like that in a time when brands are increasingly under pressure and increasingly under expectations to be meaningful to people, be constructive to their lives, to society, and be a force of good. So we now know that in order to do that, you have to be able to prove that the work that you create, the actions that you put out there, are in fact all working in service to those outcomes.
I think that what made Savlon stand out just a little bit more than the others is the fact that it's such like a non-traditional approach. It's a solution. It's not really like a campaign. You can clearly see that was only possible thanks to a very strong partnership between the client and the agency. It was like a really like one team, a very non-traditional brief, because the brief was not like, hey, bring an idea, bring an advertising. The brief was like, find a solution to this problem. And they came up with something that's incredibly creative, very insightful, something that doesn't disrupt the routine of people, instead embed a product to solve a problem within the already established routine of the kids in school, in Tier 1, Tier 2 cities in Egypt.
It solved an incredible world problem, and it put the brand and the business at the center of that solution. And it was meaningful moving work. We were really proud to award it.
This was an amazing case for me because this was an example of creative and strategy in tandem. It was about making strategy more creative and creative more strategic. And what I thought was fascinating about this case is this brand actually created a market. It didn't try and improve a market it existed in. It found an interesting gap in the market and the opportunity was always embedded in human behavior. So the solution was an interesting combination of commerciality and human benefit combined together. And I think sometimes rarely do those collide. When you see sometimes it's often a CSR effort with little commercial value to the actual organization or the brand.
I mean, I think when you look at our golds, both Pedigree and Cheetos, they rose to the top because they were examples of brands that overcame a declining category. We see a lot of categories really struggling right now, and they were able to use pure creativity with no innovation, no change to the product, no change to pricing, and just with the benefit of creative impact overcome really, really difficult business challenges.
I'm happy to see a campaign like Cheetos Museum. It's a campaign that there is nothing new about the product. It's the same product. It cannot be more product-centric than that, right? I mean, it's putting the product in a museum, and that drives sales. Like a campaign like a child replacement program, same thing. Super insightful, fun, product-centric, brand-centric, that drove sales. And Savlon is a product. I am on the client side, so I celebrate when products and brands win, because that is what kind of helps move our industry.
What we were most excited about to see in the entries is they had this beautiful trifecta. They were business building first and foremost. They resonated in culture. People outside of Cannes saw them, and they were purpose driven. So that the ability to not only drive business but also do good in the same effort, I think was really, really encouraging. We're reshaping not only business but culture through our work.
I think culture and the reflection of culture and what's happening in the world is where brands are finding their campaigns resonate the best. So we basically, as we looked across the collection of work, we saw so many things, from brands doing good to how social media has changed the way we communicate with one another. And so it was really interesting to see sort of how we live being reflected in the library of work that we saw.